Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. I'm going to talk about the media. I'm going to talk about the media being decimated now within a week of Trump's election. I know you guys are getting tired of Trump, but literally everything that we talk about, it's all coming to a head right now. And all it took was a landslide victory for the red team. I mean, we're talking like just an absolute bloodbath, not literally calm down. That's not what I'm saying. But we're talking the presidency, the House, the Senate, the popular vote, a lot of governors, right? It's not good. It's not looking good for the Democrats, and the Democrats run most of the media, both on television and online, and it's all collapsing. And I mean, this is probably going to be the biggest shift ever in how people get and disseminate news. And I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to be completely honest. I know that there's a lot of blame going around. People are pointing fingers at YouTubers and podcasters, and they were angry at people like us before. And I'm not even talking about people that are political. I mean, we, really up until like last week or so haven't been that political. But we can't avoid it now. It's like staring us right in the face now, right? They were angry at us before. Now they're going to be absolutely livid, but I think they're just going to be done. I think all of this is ending. CNN's going to be laying off hundreds of people. Wow. They're going to be laying off a bunch of people. We've got Vice talking about how games journalism needs to continue. We need games journalism. I'm like, actually, most gamers actively avoid video game journalism. And this was on November 5th. I think the tide is definitely turning. I just don't know where it's going to go. I am going to tell you that if you're an independent journalist, a digital journalist, or you're working for one of these news outlets or whatever, make sure you have your resume updated, because it's not looking good. I mean, it really is not looking good out there. And I think I personally think what's going to happen is we're going to have more independent voices, more individuals, or people with very, very small staffs manning quote unquote news desks. We're going to have more influencers, because a lot of the grunt work anymore, like the regurgitated press releases and crap, that stuff is going to be handled by AI. So you don't need an intern cranking out. Like when I first started working at newspapers, the junior writers, right? They come in, they usually would do the obits, the obituaries, stuff like that. That really didn't require any creativity or any thinking. Just here's the information, type up the obituary. Did you fill the paperwork out with family, et cetera, et cetera. The junior reporters all usually handled that. And then they'd work their way into actually covering news. But I think a lot of the news is actually going to be podcasters and independent journalists on social media, and all the other stuff, the fluff, I guess. You don't need humans to do that. I think we're going to have AI kind of handling a lot of that. So a lot of these websites are going to collapse too. And it's going to happen very, very quickly. And the first ones to go, I think, are going to be pop culture and gaming sites. And we're already seeing signs that this is happening. I can tell you firsthand, as someone who owns some of these sites and who has for a number of years owned some of these sites. Some of them we talk about, some of them we don't talk about. The page views have dropped off a freaking cliff. Google has delisted a lot of niche sites. I don't think people are even going to Google to find news anymore. I think the news is kind of being shoved in their face on their phone or their social media, timeline or whatever. So all this is changing. But let's talk about this a little bit more. This is coming from the New York Post. CNN boss Mark Thompson is laying off hundreds after the election day ratings wipeout. Now, who didn't wipe out in the ratings? Rumble. Apparently, more people are watching Rumble for election coverage than like MSN or MSNBC and CNN combined. Like, it was absolutely insane. So for all this talk of like Rumble being, am I allowed to talk about them on YouTube? I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about them on YouTube. But for all the talk about them being like the alt-right Nazi platform where all the fringe people hang out, I'm like, they had a lot of people watching them. There must be a lot of Nazis out there. I'm just saying. Ratings challenge CNN is reportedly set for a major bloodbath, with boss Mark Thompson expected to lay off high-priced on-air talent as part of wide-ranging layoffs. I think a lot of these people are going to get gone because they got so wrong. I mean, their own side are turning on them. They're saying, how'd you guys get it so wrong? Well, they basically told you what you were supposed to believe, and they repeated each other's misinformation. And they kept telling everybody that things were fine. The American people, no, we're never gonna put Trump back. And what are you talking about? All the polls say that was Alan Lichtman, the guy with the keys. Well, he says it's like, no, everybody got wrong. They all got wrong. So why are you paying them 10, 20, $50 million a year? I think Rachel Maddow gets like $50 million a year or some insane amount of money. Why the hell would you pay them that much? Like, seriously, you've got YouTubers that are making a fraction of that, getting it more right than these people are. So why would you pay them that? The cable network, which lagged behind MSNBC and Fox during last week's election night coverage, yeah, it was like a funeral, will implement layoffs that will impact hundreds of employees across the organization, says Puck News. Thompson, who took over just last year from Chris, is it Licht or Light, will cull personnel from CNN's television production teams whose talents won't necessarily be needed in the new digital-first landscape. And that's exactly it. That's where things are going. And really, I think the days of there being like big news organizations are coming to an end. And again, you're talking to a guy who started out as a journalist in a newsroom at an actual newspaper. And I worked in radio, and I worked all over the place. In my 20s, early 30s, I was working for many different outlets and doing a whole bunch of different stuff, right? And that's over. Now, a guy or girl with a microphone and a YouTube audience or a podcast audience or a Twitter audience, X audience, can bring in more views than CNN. And they fucking hate it. Oh, they fucking hate it. They were seething before, but you watch. These people, they get fired, they're going to come after YouTubers. They're going to come out. Like, this is why they're freaking out. This is why you have AOC out there frantically trying to figure out which podcasts people are listening to, which YouTube channels are listening to, because they don't understand it. They don't understand it. And for years, they called people like us misinformation. You know, more so other people. I mean, we don't really get into the hard politics, but like, it's misinformation. Why would you listen to them? They're just YouTubers. They're just podcasters. Like, more people listen to Rogan than all you guys combined, right? I mean, seriously. The network's workforce is reported to be coping with an atmosphere of high stress and high anxiety, according to Puck. Thompson, the former CEO of the New York Times and the BBC, may also demand deep cuts to the massive salaries raked in by its struggling primetime stable of anchors, which include Anderson Cooper, Aaron Burnett, and Caitlin Collins. Cooper, who anchored the election night coverage, rakes in a salary reported to be as high as $20 million. Burnett makes about $6 million. Collins takes home a more budget-friendly $3 million. I would love to go on CNN every night and just pull shit out of my ass and get paid $3 million. That would be great. Like, I don't make $3 million a year. I wonder if I could. I wonder if we could. But I don't. But it would be great, right? So we're going to have a lot of I was talking to another journalist friend of mine, and I said, we're basically going back to school newspapers. Like, we're going to have these small, very small organizations that aren't going to pay this kind of money for on-air talent. Like, I think you'll have people that get paid that, but they're going to be doing it on their own. Signs of change were apparent on Monday after Chris Wallace confirmed he was leaving. Yeah, he's like 80, ending a 3-year stint at the network that was marred by low ratings and turmoil. Last month, the independent newsletter The Anchor reported that Thompson would ask Wallace, who was earning a salary of $8.5 million annually, as well as other top stars of the network, such as Jake Tapper and Wolf Blitzer, to take pay cuts. Wolf Blitzer's still on? Oh my God, he was on during the Gulf War when I was a kid. I was like, Wolf Blitzer cannot be his name. Is that his real name? I don't even know if it's his real name. I'm like, that is the dumbest name I've ever heard. This guy's covering the war and his name's Wolf Blitzer. I'm like, what is he, a freaking G.I. Joe guy or what? As part of Thompson's reorganization, CNN will ask reporters and correspondents to assume more of the responsibilities. They're being handled by producers and production assistants. Oh my God, you're asking them to be YouTubers. and they're going to have to do more shit themselves. And guess what? They're not going to know how to do it. They're not going to know how to do it. That's why they get so pissed at people like us, because we do everything. Maybe we don't do it so well. Maybe we don't have a fancy studio, but we do it ourselves. We don't need 50 people to screw in a light bulb, right? And that's kind of the kiss of death for a lot of these even the YouTube channels. I've seen these YouTube channels where it's like they got like 20 people working for them, 30 people working for them. Rooster Teeth. I'm like, how many fucking people do you need working at Rooster Teeth? Right? I mean, I understand the animation side of things, but you've got like, what, 20 people that are like on-air talent? Where is the money coming from? Like, I'm looking at your views and I'm like, there ain't no way you're making enough money off of your views to pay that many people to stink it up on YouTube. Just saying. And they got gone. CNN's going to do away with redundant assignments while either reducing or outright eliminating various divisions, according to Puck. They laid 100 people off earlier this year. That was only 3%. Now they're going to lay a bunch more off. They only had 5.1 million viewers in primetime last Tuesday. According to Nielsen, Fox News, which shares common ownership with the Post, reeled in 10.3 million viewers from 8 to 11. MSNBC averaged 6 million viewers. I watch mostly MSNBC just because I wanted to see Rachel Maddow have a shit fit, and she didn't. She really didn't. I was disappointed. I really was. In 2016, CNN had an audience of 13 million viewers on election day. CNN spokespeople touted the network's cross-platform audience of 44 million, which includes 14 million who streamed coverage. They're just trying to pad the numbers. Like, look, you're done, right? You're done. Again, the Post, even post-election, the media still can't grasp. They've lost America's trust. And it started really, I think, in the pop culture space. I think that gamers and nerds were ahead of the curve. We realized a long time ago that gaming journos were corrupt and selfish and not reporting the facts, that they were biased. A lot of them wanted to get jobs in the gaming industry or in the comic book industry. And they basically used the media as a step stool to do that. And there was this whole like artificial LA geek scene that was being propped up, right? And I think the Nerdist was kind of the first one to do that. Geek and Sundry, Critical Role kind of spun off from that. And again, no shade being thrown at Matt Mercer, but that was the whole scene. It was this like fake LA geek scene, and a lot of the, kind of anti-chud mentality. It was being propped up by a bunch of journalists that had an axe to grind with the chuds, which really comprised the bulk of geekdom, right? So then they're very surprised when the games that they were touting, supporting, didn't perform very well, when the boycotts they called for, like Hogwarts Legacy, did not work out because they're in the minority, just like the mainstream media is in the minority when it comes to politics. They gave the perception that they were in charge. They gave the perception that they were the authorities because they had the megaphone. And you really didn't have, for the longest time, you didn't have much of a choice but to listen to them. But it was all fake. You had a very small number of people in very, very blue parts of the country telling everybody else the news from their perspective, their truths, right? Their truths. And it turned out that it didn't resonate with the majority of people. So what we're going to have is a more democratized media landscape. And that means that individuals or small groups of people who maybe don't toe the line with Hollywood or with the video game industry or with the comic book industry or the animation industry, they're going to be fine, provided these social media platforms that they're hosted on don't pull the rug out from underneath them, which is how they try to level the playing field, right? They will deboost channels, I believe. I think YouTube, honestly, is doing that right now. Well, they're not doing it currently, but I think they were doing it up until last week. I know in our own experience, just again, this is anecdotal, that for the last like 3 months, it was very hard to find our channel. We weren't being shadow banned. Like if you looked for us, you'd find us, but we weren't popping up in people's recommendations anymore. We weren't being organically recommended anymore. We have people that we talk to at YouTube, and I was like, what is going on here? I said, we're flatlining it. Like, what is going on? There's something going on. oh no, just maybe people aren't interested in your content. Da, da, da. No, that's that's not true. Because as soon as they pushed the button, whatever the button was, like Monday, Tuesday, and this is after Trump called the CEO of Google, and I probably threatened him, said, hey, if you guys are playing favorites, we're going to clamp down on that, and we might break up Google next year, just so you know. All of a sudden, the traffic got turned back on. And we're right back to where we were 6 to 8 months ago. Very, very curious. Very curious. And I think this is the media trying to hold on to what little power they have. And they do 100% blame YouTubers. And when it comes to gaming journalists, I mean, look, we have the audio version of Clownfish TV. We're actually beating IGN's podcasts at this point. And it's just something that we do kind of on the side. We have an audio version of some of our episodes. You can go out and listen to it on iTunes or Amazon or, Spotify or whatever. But like just passively, we're actually beating IGN. And again, it's just the two of us. How many people does IGN have making podcasts and videos for them? And that's what CNN's talking about. They're like, we're going to have to trim the fat. We got to get these people doing more because they're looking at YouTubers and podcasters. And they're like, how come these people are getting like millions of downloads and there's only like, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people working there. And we got like how many idiots working here and they're getting paid how much? You know what I'm saying? Like that's not sustainable. But I'm just going to wrap it up with this. We're going to see a lot of salt. We're going to see a lot of salt in the very near future because a lot of these, I believe a lot of these publications, especially video game publications, are going to get shut down. I think Kotaku and Polygon are definitely going to get shut down soon or consolidated or something. And a lot of it has to do with the Google just turning off the traffic to these sites and the rates not being what they were before. And they kind of turned the traffic off on themselves before Google turned the traffic off because they pissed off gamers, right? They kept lying to gamers, lying to nerds, demonizing them, calling them chuds, calling them Nazis, calling them fascists, and people tuned out other than to go point and laugh. Actually, I'm going to say that channels like ours probably gave Kotaku and Polygon and the Mary Sue and all these other ones a bit of an extra life bar, right? I think we kept them alive longer because we kept talking about them. I don't think people were actually going to these sites on their own. I think that channels like ours talking about them and making fun of them actually not only incentivized them to go harder in the paint with the ridiculous hot takes, but it also kept them around longer. And now that we've effectively replaced them, again, not just us, but channels like ours and podcasts like ours and people that do work on X and elsewhere, they're not really necessary anymore, right? Gamers aren't listening to them. And, it's just Google turning the traffic off is just kind of the kill shot, I think. So things are definitely going to change. People are going to be angry. They'll get over it. I think they're going to have to learn to do something else. I don't think a lot of these people can jump into the online personality space. The people who could have already gotten out, like the Tucker Carlsons and, you know what I'm saying? Like they've already gone out on their own. The people that are left, I don't think they have what it takes, or they would have left by now because it's very clear that the legacy media is dying. So I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later. Join the reef. Go to clownfish-.com. That's clownfish-.com. You will get exclusive access to podcasts and videos and comic strips and more, as well as merch discounts. Check it out. If you were a member, you could get this t-shirt, this dismal t-shirt on our website. You'd get a 10% discount on that. You can also join in the community on clownfish-.com. Thank you so much for the support.